another 12 minutes. As you can see, I'm downloading the movie Marry Riana. It's about a coming-of-age story based on the book of Mary Riana. She was a student from Indonesia who went to study at the Nanyang Technical University in Singapore. So this movie is based on the book. She actually intended to study in Jakarta, where she was living, but during the time there were a lot of demonstrations on the streets and riots. I think that was in 1998, so it was a bit dangerous to go on the streets there. So I think her parents decided to send her to Singapore because there was this NTU, Nanyang University in Singapore, distributed advertising for Indonesian students to study over there. They would get a loan for the whole period of their studies, and they could pay back the loan after they graduated and after they already find work. So some of the Indonesian students from Jakarta decided to study in Singapore, and this is the story of Mary Riana, who was also one of the students who studied over there, and she tells her story how she overcame her situation. Although she got a loan from the DBS, I think that's the bank in Singapore, to study there. It was covering like the accommodation, the studies, and she got some allowance, but it was very minimal for the allowance, so she had to pay her own books and food, I think. And most of her other friends, their parents supported them for daily living, but Mary Riana, she got only little support from her parents because they weren't in a good economic situation. So she decided to toughen up and be independent and find her own way. So when she started to study in Nanyang University, she calculated how much she could spend a week, because although she was staying at the university in the dormitory there, she had to be very careful of her allowance money, because she calculated that she would need like almost half of the monthly allowance money to buy books for her studies, and the other half she could use to buy food. So she calculated that at that time she could only spend $10, 10 Singapore dollars a week on food. She brought many of those instant noodles that you have here in Indonesia. She brought it over when she came, and he basically ate noodles and tea and drank tea for most of the time, and also bought two slices of bread every day. So that was basically her food for the first time when she arrived there, for the first year at least, because the first year was kind of maybe hectic and she had a lot of work to do, so she didn't have much time to think about anything else. Later on, I think in the second year, she thought of looking for a part-time job, and she found a job as a flyer distributor in the city, distributing flyers with ads on them, and she got paid according to how many flyers she distributed. So she did that during her holiday, and also on her time off, I think during the weekends, like when she wasn't studying, she was working distributing flyers, but she didn't got much, but it was still a lot more than she had without any employment. So she could buy better food now, even though it wasn't much. It's still more than she had before. And then she learned how to observe people, how to communicate, how to see if they are willing to take a look at the flyer or not. And she learned a lot, even though it was just menial work, but it wasn't paying much. And then she found another person who was distributing flyers, and they paid more, but it was also more work. She had to stand much longer and didn't have any time for breaks, but it paid almost double. So she took it and she did that for a while. And then the owner was a laundry business person who had several businesses, like a laundry place, a camera shop, and a flower shop. And he suggested Mary to also head over to the flower shop where his sister was working there, and there Mary was working also, taking care of it was a small flower shop near the center, where I think in a busy district. So she was working in the flower shop during her holidays and also her free time, and she learned how to make a composition of flowers and cutting the thorns off and things like that. And finally the owner say, why not go to all the offices in the building to ask for their business cards and to ask if they need any flowers, and when they do, they should call them up. And so that was a new task for her. Before, she only had to distribute flyers, and now she actually had to communicate with her potential customers. So she went from office to office and asking for if they need any flowers, and if they don't, she asked them for their business cards and phone number. And many, they wouldn't want to give their business card, or they wanted to get rid of her. But she found out that she just had to ask for their number, and she would write it on her own pad. So like that, they couldn't find an excuse to say that they don't have no business cards anymore. So she did that, and she learned how to talk to people and how to convince them, and she learned a lot from that work experience. And then that's where she saw, oh, one day I also want to work in a nice building like this, or things like that. Early on, she found out that even if she would graduate from that university and start working for a big company, it would be a good salary, but it will not be enough to support her and her family in a manner that she wanted. So she wanted to be able to live comfortably afterwards, but also pay off her student loan and be able to take her parents anywhere she wants, and take care of her own family. And that was just not possible with a corporate job. Even if it's a high position, it will never be enough. So she decided quite early that she needed to start her own business if she wanted to reach her goal that she intended to. So ever since she started studying, she always tried to find ways to start a business, and she tried many things. After the flower shop, she heard of a hotel, a 5-star hotel, which was employing temporary workers for functions and for special occasions, and she worked as a waitress there. And every waitress, they had training, and every waitress was responsible for a table for the whole evening. So she was working there also, and she earned some money there, and she always saved, and so now she was happy that she could buy proper food and everything. So, and she started saving because she worked regularly, but she still kept very low spending. So she was looking for opportunities to start her own business, and then she heard of this multi-level marketing product from a friend, and then she went there, and the office didn't look very kosher, and then so they convinced her to invest like $200 to get this access to how to start a business with multi-level marketing, and they kind of tricked her. So the next day the office was gone, and she lost the $200, and she was very upset about that. But she learned a lesson in that. So later on at her university, she thought of starting a T-shirt business for the students who I think who, because there were student groups who needed T-shirts for their. Well, before that she met a guy she met someone because Riana is quite religious, and she likes religious studies, and during the extracurricular activity, one of the activities was like a religion class, and one of the students there was a boy whom she met, who she found really interesting because they both had similar beliefs, and they have similar interests, and they both like to read similar books, like about improving themselves, like the books from Tony Robbins, and they always discuss ideas about a business and how to improve themselves and how to achieve their goals. And with him, she's tried to start a T-shirt business at the university, and also a printing business for to print out the students' theses. And she found out there were many competition, and there were big companies, and they were selling at a lower price than she could offer, even though she went to all of the printer shops in Singapore to find out which one is the cheapest and which one can print the things that she wanted. So in any case, she couldn't, after long research, she couldn't compete with the big printing companies. So she and her boyfriend decided to stop that and look for something else. And then they found another business from Jakarta which was selling vitamins, but it wasn't available in Singapore. So they went to Jakarta to get a sample and bring it back, and the company said, oh, we might be interested to distribute in Singapore. So they prepared all of that, and they prepared info seminars for students who might be interested to invest in this vitamin business. So they did like every week some kind of seminar for everybody to talk about these products, to prepare them before the launch in Singapore. But finally, after 3 months, the Jakarta office said that they weren't going to expand to Singapore, so that plan also didn't work out. So, and then they did some kind of simulation games at the university, and they won 2 times, and they thought, oh, maybe we can do that in real. So they started stock investing. They went to the bank and opened a trading account at the bank, and then the first day they made like $300, but eventually they lost everything because they were trading. They were like, they buy and sell on the same day, and this was very risky, so they didn't really know what they were doing, so they lost quite a bit of money on that. During all this time, they both tried to find ways to live frugally, and they also find out that sometimes at the university there was like presentations, and if you would go to those presentations, after the presentation there would be a free meal and drinks and things like that, so they were able to eat some good food, even though sometimes the presentation was long and it wasn't their main interest, but after the presentation, if there was free food, then they would join it. So the main thing is that they had a common goal, and when something didn't work out, they always find another solution that would work, or they try and try and try until it works, and that's very, very admirable. So after they graduated from NTU University, they both got engaged, and then they had to move out from the university because they already graduated, and they graduated with honors. That is like the second best level before the top level. And they decided, unlike all their other friends who graduated, their friends, they took corporate jobs where many of them had an internship. Many of them had an internship at big corporate companies, and so most of their friends went to work for those companies. But Mary and her fiancé decided that they wanted to go straight into business. So after doing some research and looking what kinds of fields is possible to start a business and make some money, they decided to go into insurance and financial services. So they went from office to office in Singapore, but most of them denied them because they were not Singapore citizens. They were Indonesians, and the companies didn't want to go through the trouble with immigration and to make them get the proper permit to work. But finally, after the fourth office of insurance and financial services, they got accepted to start there, and they didn't got any salary, but they started on commission based, so they only got the commission when they sold one of the insurance products or the finance product. But before they could do that, they needed a certification in that finance area. Actually, for that sales job, they didn't have to have a bachelor degree, because a high school degree would be enough, except they needed the financial certification first. So even if they had a bachelor degree, they still need to get the finance certification. So they did that. They studied several books, and they had to pass 4 exams, and Mary passed 3, and she later did the last one, but she already could start working with those. So first she tried with cold calling customers in the phone book, but then that didn't really work out. So she tried to find another solution. How can we get to know our customers better? So they decided to go straight to the people on the street, and to also knock on the doors of apartments. But finally they settled to approach potential customers. They tried different places. They tried the city center, the MRT, but they finally settled on the bus station, because people climbing out of the bus seemed less in a hurry than people climbing out of the MRT. So they concentrated on on that, but not in the city center, because in the city center there was a lot of competition from other salespeople who were also selling to those customers. So they found a bus station a bit outside of the city where they were standing on the bus stop, where people climb out and approaching them with the information of the products they are selling, of the insurance, and it's not really clear what she didn't really tell exactly what she is selling. I only can assume is insurance and maybe mutual funds from banks like Prudential, but in the book it's not really detailed what she is selling. And then at first she didn't have much success with that, because most people didn't want to be bothered by salespeople. But slowly she found out what was working and what didn't work, and then they adjust she and her fiance, they adjust their approach to selling those products. And finally, when they had the system that worked, they found out that they need to make 20 presentations a day to get one customer. So 20 were willing, from the 20 who were willing to listen to what she had to sell, 5 of them would make a second appointment to learn more about the product, and only 1 of the 5 would buy. So that they worked out on average. So if they can sell 1 per day, they would reach their goal to sell products worth $100,000 a year. And that was their goal, because if the salesperson sells that amount, they can be promoted. If they sell that amount in a year, they can be promoted to a managerial position. So that was their goal. So when they did the presentation, they made the appointment. They didn't have an office of their own, so they made the appointment at public places like McDonald's, where she talked in depth of her products that she is selling. So she was many times discouraged, because it was so difficult to get customers, but her fiance at the time, he always supported her, and he was the one in the behind the curtain who was organizing the thing. She was the one approaching the customers to communicate, but he was the one putting everything together, like making the strategy and doing all of the administrative work and supporting her also. So slowly but sure, they started to get more customers, because she always continued to reach her goal, and she also became more resilient to negative responses. So she's no more that much affected when people say no. She just brush it off. So they started to plan their day with specific tasks. So in the morning she would prepare her information material for the potential customers, and also handle the customers she already got, and fill out the correct documents, and do copies, and talk with the customers she already had. So that a specific task for the whole day. So, and they did that, and they know if they would do that all the time, eventually they will reach their goal, because out of trial and error, because they already found what worked and what didn't work, and they calculate what they needed to reach their goal. This is what they need to do, and they followed their strategy accordingly. And during the whole time they adjust their strategy to improve it from what they learned. So in the first year she she already managed to get enough commissions from her sales to pay off a student loan. And her student loan was at that time 40,000 Singapore dollars, and she was able in less than a year, I think it's only a few months, she was able to pay it off at once. During that time, she continued to make new strategies, and she was promoted to managerial position. And this is when her career started to take off. I think that's the moment, though. Well, even already before she paid off the loan, she was already had a good strategy to move forward, and the rest just got better and better. So after a year, she was invited to international conference in different countries, which was called Star Club, and she got a lot of attention from many different media outlets, and she became president of that Star Club. And after 2 years or so, she and her now husband, still fiancé, but they were going to get married. So they both they moved out from the company they were working for and rented their own office space, and they decided to hire people only who have a bachelor degree, and they had an interview process where they also test their potential employees, and they made different kinds of tasks which they had to complete, and depending how they do in those tasks, they are either going to get hired or not. So they got 20 new employees, and they continually trained them to do what they did before, and they had a lot of success with that. So that was the story. And after that, when they had their own company, she was able to buy a nice apartment in a good area in Singapore, and she was able to invite her parents to a holiday in Thailand. And I think the most important lessons from her was that she was very determined, and she worked very hard, and she never gave up. And she had a specific goal in mind, and she gave her a limit of how much time she had to achieve that goal, because she told herself that she wanted to achieve financial freedom before the age of 30 in order to be able to give back to her parents before her parents got old, that they cannot enjoy it that much as when they were younger. So she decided to be able to reach her goal before the age of 30, and by the age of 26 she had an income already above $1 million Singapore dollars, and it only continued to grow after that. So she actually reached her goal before the age of 30. And so at the end of the book, she has several advice that helped her achieve her goal, and including focus on the things which need to be done, creating a work pattern to achieve your goals, and to have passion for what you are doing, and always having a lookout for opportunities which may help you get nearer to your goal, and also living frugal and saving what you already earned and putting back into the business. And most important is faith, which kept her on track and also was the source of resilience and hope. So that was my review of Mary Riana. The Indonesian title is called Mimpi Sejuta Dollar, which is translated to Dream of $1 million. And I bought this book because it was first in English, because normally here in Indonesia most books are in Indonesian, especially those written by an Indonesian are in Indonesian. So, but this was in English, and I was interested in her story because it was she was studying in Singapore, and I wanted to hear anybody's experience in Singapore, and there's also some kind of motivation book for people who are interested in starting a business and working. Who now she moved back to Jakarta and is now a motivational speaker and educator and author. She also has other books out, and she says she wants to give back to her home country. And she also has her own TV show, I think. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope you can you learn something new, and I hope, and thanks for watching, and stay safe.